I have never filmed, produced, recorded a single video anywhere about an audio interface. Let's be honest, if you own an audio interface, and it works, you probably haven't thought about it again since the day you bought it. And that was the case for me. I had the exact same audio interface for 7 years, really never thought about it twice. Even as all the new models and different companies came up with innovations, I didn't need to think about a new one. I had one and it worked. And then 2 months ago, Tascam sent me this, the 208i. Finally, an audio interface to be excited about. Hey, Brian Miller here, and welcome to Audio for Content Creators, where we help you sound better and level up for all your content creation needs. And in this video, obviously, we're taking a look at the Tascam 208i audio interface. For starters, as I already mentioned, Tascam sent this to me. I am in the middle of an ongoing collaboration with Tascam. They've sent me a whole ton of products to review. I told Tascam, you are not who I think of when I think of audio interfaces. I think of Focusrite, I think of PreSonus, right? There's a couple of different main companies, and they said, we totally get that. That's why we want to show you this. Take a look at it, do a review, see what you think. And I used it for a couple of months, and boy, were they right. Not enough people know about this, not enough people are talking about this, and everything you're hearing in this video, absolutely all the audio is being recorded through the 208i. At the moment, I'm using a shotgun mic up above the frame, the Audio-Technica AT875R. The most exciting thing about this interface is actually in the computer. It's not on the piece of hardware itself, but I'm gonna let you wonder about that, and we'll get back to that. First, let's take a look at the hardware. The 208i has 4 inputs. The 108i has 2 inputs. That's the last time I'm gonna mention the 108i in this particular video. Link in the description to the 108i. You can look up all of the particular specs of that one. Again, like I said, it's the same thing, just less. Now, each of these inputs is what you would expect from a modern audio interface. They are combo jacks. You can plug in a 1/4-inch TRS cable, like an instrument cable, like for a guitar, a line cable coming out of, say, a keyboard, and XLR for professional grade microphones. And immediately we discover one of the most exciting things about this particular interface. See, on the average standard audio interface, you get phantom power, which is for powering condenser microphones, like the Audio-Technica AT875R, like your standard large diaphragm condensers that a lot of podcasters would use. Mics like that require 48 volts of phantom power. And typically on an audio interface, you'd get one button for phantom power on or off. And that supplies universal global power to the entire unit, which sounds good, but it's really not. Because sometimes, especially if you have 4 inputs, you might have one mic plugged in that requires phantom power, and then one mic plugged in that doesn't, like the SM58, and then maybe a guitar is plugged into another channel, and that also doesn't need phantom power. And when you have a standard interface that's got global phantom power, you have to turn it on to all of the inputs. Is it going to damage dynamic mics or guitars that don't require it? Probably not, but that's clunky. Whereas here, Tascam has made this much more elegant. Every single input has its own 3-way selector. Having that selector on all 4 individual channels means that, like on channel 1 right now, which is my AT875R, I've got phantom power on. But on channel 2, I have mic level on, because that's the Shure SM58, which doesn't need phantom power. As I said, this is elegant, and it makes me feel a lot better about plugging some of my more expensive microphones into this. You'll notice that each input channel also has an LED light for signal, so you can see that you are actually getting a signal, and a little clipping light so that that would light up, I believe, red, letting you know that you are overloading the input, that you're driving it too hard, that you need to back off your gain, which is really useful to have that visual confirmation on each individual channel. As for the gain dial itself, there's a good amount of gain, but not an excessive amount of gain. You will be able to drive something like the SM58, for example. You are now listening to the SM58. I've got the gain dial set at 100%. 100%. This is the maximum amount of gain, and we're getting a nice healthy signal. But if you know anything about microphones, if you're thinking about some of the more gain-hungry mics like the SM7B, this interface is not going to give you enough gain to drive the SM7B into a clean into a healthy signal. Continuing along the front panel, we've got a giant monitor volume knob. That is the volume knob for the main output, the main monitors. I really like that they made the monitor volume bit bigger than all the rest of the knobs. It makes it easier to turn. All the way over here, we've got two headphone output jacks, which is such a wonderful thing to have in an audio interface. Most only come with one. Unfortunately, there is a global headphone level. You don't have individual levels for the two of them. It's a bit of a shame. And last but not least, the only knob that you absolutely must have on an audio interface if you are a podcaster or a live streamer or really any kind of a content creator these days, which is the monitor mix balance. All of these interfaces call them something a little bit different. This one is called the monitor balance. And essentially what this knob does is it allows you to mix a signal between how much of the direct source, the direct inputs from this interface you actually want to hear versus what's coming back from the computer. In other words, you get to mix between your input sources and the computer coming back to you, the return. And the reason this is so important is because when you're podcasting, when you're doing a live stream, you've got your headphones on, and you want to be able to hear your own voice in your headphones so you can monitor what you actually sound like. And this allows you to have direct zero latency monitoring. And now a quick demo of what a clean guitar going in DI sounds like, and then I'll put some amp simulators on it so you can hear how that plays if you were actually using it like this. That sounded good. I didn't even tune the guitar before I started playing. Now let's take a look at the back panel real quick to see what the output situation looks like and some of the additional features. Left and right outputs for monitors, 6 additional balanced line outs, MIDI in and out, 2 optical ins for expandable inputs, and of course the power adapter, USB connection, and on-off switch. And now for the really exciting stuff. I promised you something exciting was coming, and it is. We're heading into the computer to take a look at the Tascam control software for this unit. This is a virtual digital mixing station that controls the hardware audio interface. And what you'll notice right down here is that I have 2 mics plugged in right now, the one that was overhead that I'm not actually using at the moment, and the SM58, which is sat right in front of me, which is here on channel 2. This is the SM58 here on input 2. Now what you'll notice is that every single one of the channels has its own channel strip. And that channel strip is comprised of a bunch of different things. Right now, I've got through enabled, which means it's not doing anything to the audio. It's passing the audio straight through, and that's what's being recorded. That's what's being captured at the moment. If I uncheck through, nothing has changed because I have nothing else enabled. But you see that now, if we're on this channel, everything lights up here. You can see that I've already set an EQ and a compressor, but neither of them is on at the moment. So right now, I'm going to turn on the EQ. And now I've got the EQ turned on for the Shure SM58. What do I have going on? Well, for low, I've enabled this as a low cut filter. So I'm doing a low cut at 70 hertz. Then in the low mids, I took 2 decibels out around 500 hertz, although I think if I increase the Q a little bit, maybe to 4, and then I take out a little bit more, that'll probably help you because I have a real low mid problem in the 500 hertz range. It's where I get that nasal quality in my voice. The high mids, I'm doing a very aggressive -5 dB at 1.1 kilohertz. In the highs, I'm actually doing a 2 decibel boost at around 8 kilohertz to brighten up the overall sound. So here you go with the EQ off. And now the EQ is off. This is completely flat and neutral. And now the EQ is on, and we've got what sounds like I've done post-processing, but I haven't. I'm doing this in real time, which means if you were live streaming or podcasting or doing a guest spot on somebody else's live stream, you can actually manipulate the EQ of your voice in real time without any additional software, without third-party controls. And now let's turn on the compressor. Now we've got the compressor on, and you should be hearing right away that all of a sudden we're starting to get that broadcast radio sound because I've got the threshold set around -18 dB right there. I've got the attack at 4, the release at 40. That's a pretty average spot. Usually for me, I go for 3, but it doesn't allow me to do 3. It's either 2 or 4 here, so I'm going for 4. I've got a 4 ratio. I could probably go to a 5-to-1 ratio if I really wanted to be aggressive. And you'll notice that right here is where you see the gain reduction. And so I'm adding about 4 decibels back in at the end of this. And that means that I'm compressing my voice and then boosting it by 4 dB. Compressing by 4 dB, boosting by 4 dB, which means overall my voice sounds thicker, it sounds fuller, it sounds more produced. And again, I'm doing this in real time. It sounds like the compressor's really accentuating my some of the sibilance in my voice. So maybe up here I would actually back off. Yeah, okay, so by doing that, I've actually smoothed it out a little bit. And now let me show you through. Now there's absolutely nothing being done to my voice. This is the Shure SM58 going straight through. And now we've got the EQ and compression going, so you've got a radio broadcast kind of a sound with both of these things enabled, the EQ and the compression. And if we skip all the way down here, we can solo or mute. This is not going to solo or mute the output. Let's say if you hit the mute button like I do right now. I hit the mute button, you'll notice that you're still hearing me. I'm still being recorded, I'm still being captured, and a live stream would still be able to hear me, a podcast, but I can't hear myself in my own monitoring anymore in my headphones. That's what the solo and mute does. If I unmute it, now I can hear myself in my headphones again. And that means I can have multiple devices and I can choose which one I want to monitor at a time. And also, you'll notice that if I back this off all the way, you're still hearing me. It did not change anything for you at all. And so that's another way that you can decide how you want to hear what you're monitoring in your own headphones. On top of that, up here, you've got all the information about what you're using at the moment. And look at this. A full routing diagram right from within your control software, so you'll always know where things are going in, where things are going out from, and if you wanted to, you could have multiple different monitors from your different outputs on the back panel, and then virtually switch between those different monitors, those different outputs here in the software. The final verdict on the Tascam 208i is, yes, it's a little pricey. It's certainly more than you're used to paying for your standard entry-level 2-channel budget interface. But it's got so much stuff built into one unit. Not to mention the fact that the preamps in this thing are really, really top-notch. They're warm, they sound full, they don't have that plasticky digital sound that so many modern preamps have. There's been this push for this perfectly transparent, clean, invisible preamp sound, and what's happening is we're getting these kind of sterile recordings. This is a product for a lifetime. It's a product that'll serve you incredibly well. The combination of the top-notch preamps, all of the ins and outs, the individual selection on each channel for what type of source you're using, and The compression, the EQ, if you make a lot of content with a lot of different types of audio sources on a regular basis, you want the ability to have 4 channels so you can leave all your different mics plugged in, your overhead mic, your desk mic, guitar, or some other, a keyboard or a synthesizer or some other kind of sound pad, drum machines, beats makers. If you want to have all that stuff plugged in all the time, set it once, get your settings nailed, get your compression, your EQ, everything set in the software, and then just forget about it. You've got a device that is the hub of your entire studio. I can't recommend this audio interface enough. Go to the links in the description to check out the Tascam 208i and its smaller brother, the 108i. That being said, my name is Brian Miller. Thanks so much for sticking with me, and always remember, our world is a shared experience. Every interaction is meaningful, and every person you meet, even virtually, is important. Come back anytime to sound better and level up, and we'll see you soon.